I don't know, Taylor Swift and a node that represents Katy Perry, I can try to measure how similar are they, or are they more similar than Taylor Swift and I don't know, Adele. We can try to different like to measure how the knowledge graph encodes the similarity of different concepts, etc. We can also apply reasoning processes, so we can use rules or other sorts of techniques to try to uh, utilize, well, reasoning processes, it's literally the word, right? Like to extract new hypotheses about things that are not yet in the knowledge graph, or loads of different things, really. Like, mm, as you will see in a second, AI is like a very like promising field for knowledge graphs, and we can try to do like loads of things. And if you want to get like more details, maybe ask around the end of the presentation, but I'm just trying to be super fast here, so that's why I'm like not diving super deep into each of the points. But in general, the idea here is that we should remember that with AI we can try to like somehow try to put intelligence into knowledge graphs, right? And how do we exactly do that? Well, we do that with a thing that's called a knowledge graph embedding algorithm. And I won't explain how they work here. I have some slides on that, so if you want to really ask me at the end of the presentation, because like I can try to go through an explanation, but otherwise we wouldn't have time in 20 minutes. So what we need to know here is what's the concept of an embedding. And the way I like to explain this is that an embedding is literally a concept, it's an idea. So for example, I can think of a slice of pizza, I think of that, something comes to my mind, I picture that in my head, okay, slice of pizza. That's an idea that you have inside your head, right? But if now I ask you to think about a car is a different idea, it's a different concept. So what comes to your head when you close your eyes is a different image. That's the same thing as an embedding. An embedding is an internal way for a computer to represent different ideas. We do that with, well, like a vector numbers. And here we try to encode the idea of being a pizza or being a car, but it's literally just the same idea behind our own human mental ideas. So what we try to do with knowledge graphs and AI is trying to extract embeddings of the things that are in the knowledge graph. So for example, if I have a knowledge graph that includes the different presidents of the US, then what I can try to do is I can try to extract what's the idea of being Barack Obama, what's the idea of being Trump, etc. That's what I'm asking the knowledge graph embedding algorithm to do. Um, Idea here, this is just a way to represent concepts. And there's basically two different types of algorithms that can do, well, that can extract embeddings of the different nodes in the knowledge graph. Translational models, semantic matching models. We can, well, try to dive like a little bit deeper into them if we have time in the questions, but I can't really cover this part in just 5 minutes, because as you can see here, there's like a lot of them. Like there's new algorithms each year, so it's very hard to try to explain how they work in a short amount of time. So the idea here that I'll give you is it's the basically same idea in all of the different models, trying to extract these concepts, those embeddings from the knowledge graph. They do it in different ways, but what we can try to do is to try to extract ideas from the knowledge graph. All right, so that's what we need to remember. We can extract the ideas behind the different nodes in the knowledge graph. And what can we do with that? The real world applications. Well, we can, for example, try to predict gene disease associations. So, for example, if I know that if I'm able to represent the idea of being the gene numbered, I don't know, 127 in the human genome, And I can also represent the idea of having Parkinson's disease. I can try, for example, to measure the similarity between this gene and Parkinson's disease. And maybe I will see that they are closely associated, so I can try to, well, invest money into researching a drug that targets that gene. Or maybe I will see that they are not associated, so I will not try to research that gene for curing Parkinson's disease. That's one of the things that we can do. Another thing is drug repurposing. So, for example, this is something that happened with a drug that was used to cure obesity, which will, well, it's still like very trendy right now. It's Ozempic. So I believe that probably you heard about it. That drug was originally used for, well, curing, not curing, but treating diabetes. The thing is that some people realized that actually it also made you lose weight. So it was repurposed as a weight loss drug. That's something that can be done in general if you have a big knowledge graph of the different effects of different drugs. You can try to look for patterns on things like, this drug is usually, for example, used to treat diabetes, but it actually looks that it causes a lot of effects on weight loss. So maybe we can try to repurpose this drug to help people to lose weight, right? So that's drug repurposing. Other applications, Facebook, for example, it's a knowledge graph of people that are connected. So I'm here, I have my friend here. If we are friends in Facebook, we have a line that connects us. And what Facebook does is like it suggests your friends, etc. It can be done with knowledge graphs and knowledge graph embeddings. Also, another thing that we can do, for example, is search engines like Google. They have their own knowledge graph of the different websites and they measure the similarity between them. And well, you could probably come up with 100 different ideas on this. So again, loads of different applications, but it's also true that there's limitations. And I wanted to, well, just give you an intuition of what's the thing that for me is the main limitation with knowledge graphs. So, for example, if we take a look here at this knowledge graph, we can see that we have a knowledge graph that tries to encode gene disease associations. So, for example, we know that gene 1 causes lung cancer, gene 1 causes heart disease, gene 2 causes lung cancer, etc. And then we could try to apply some AI algorithm here to try to maybe say that gene 2 is also likely to cause heart disease, maybe, or whatever the algorithm tells us. The problem with knowledge graph embeddings and with the algorithms behind those systems is that if I change the semantics, if I change the labels of the things here, the predictions of the algorithms don't change. So I'll give you one example. I've just changed all of the information in the knowledge graph. So you see that now it's not about genes and diseases. Now it's like about people and the movies that they like. So it's a completely different knowledge graph. But if we were to run the algorithm, this AI thing on top of this knowledge graph, what we would get is exactly, absolutely the same predictions, because the right now the classical algorithms are not able to understand what's the semantic information in the different nodes. So they don't look at the words, they just look at the fact that I have a circle here and there's a line here, but it doesn't actually pay attention to what's inside the circle. For example, also if I were to change likes for hates, which is a completely different thing, right? It's literally the opposite. I would get the exact same prediction. So that's something that I think is a clear limitation. There's something that smells fishy here, and the question is, what can we do? Well, the answer for me, at least, is that we can try to mix them with language models. And I want to give you like some very, very well short ideas of things that we can try to do with knowledge graphs and language models. Those are three different ideas. There's many more things that we could do, really, but just some, well, ideas of things that are possible, right? The first thing that we can try to do is to do a thing that's called knowledge harvesting. What's knowledge harvesting? The idea is super simple. So you know that language models have read loads of different websites, etc. So they have like some background knowledge inside of them that represents the structure of the real world, right? So what we can try to do is that we can try to somehow extract what's the things that the language models know. And how do we do that? Well, I'll give you an example of a system. There's more, but um I'll just give you an example with this thing that's called Comet here, because the idea is super simple, so I can like explain it in just 1 second. So if we take one of the example knowledge graphs that we saw before, this is a common sense knowledge graph, right? And the idea here is that we can just try to do an extraction. So we can try to extract tail entities given the heads and the relations in triples. What I mean by that is that, for example, if I tell you um, Paris is the capital of France, that's a triple. I have a subject here, the head, a relation, being the capital of a country, and the country. This is the tail. So I'm given two things. I'm given the head and the relation, and I try to extract the third thing here. What we do is we take a language model, we fine tune the language model to always spit out the thing that comes here in the third place. And so then if we prompt the language models with, for example, Berlin is the capital of, it will tell me, oh, it's Germany. Super simple idea, right? But it's one of the things that we can try to do to mix knowledge graphs and large language models. In this case, to create to create knowledge graphs. We are just able to create them much more easily, faster, etc. So it's an advantage that we can try to leverage using language models. And another thing that we can try to do is to use knowledge graphs to answer questions. And an example here is a thing that's called Oreo LM. Again, I won't really explain in depth what's this thing about, but if you want more information, like just ask at the end. And the idea in general is just to try to make language models interact with knowledge graphs to find answers. So you'll see an example here. Usually what we do, so for example, if I ask the question, what cheese is used to make cannoli? In classical approaches, what I would try to do is I would try to generate a query and then try to explore my knowledge graph, go to different nodes, and try to extract an answer. The problem is that thing doesn't work all the time. Sometimes sometimes I just can't get an answer. And or what Oreo LM does is that it changes the search process to utilize a language model and the background information in the language model to explore the knowledge graph. So it will go to the different nodes in the knowledge graph and it will try to reach the answer here that is ricotta. It will try to start in cannoli, cheese, and go around the knowledge graph until it finds ricotta. And it does that by having a back and forth interaction between the knowledge graph and the language model. Again, for more details, just ask me a little bit later. But um, there's another system I wanted to super briefly mention, which is CS-Prompt KG. CS-Prompt KG is a very notable attempt at trying to literally to do sort of the same thing as we just saw RioLM, but it tries to do that in a sort of different way. It literally trains your knowledge graph. So you have regular knowledge graph, but it creates embeddings for the different nodes in the knowledge graph in such a way that they are informed by the language model. So when you do your similarity comparisons or any sort of operation using the embeddings, actually those embeddings have been informed by the language model. And I can't really dedicate a lot more time to that because, well, it's really a world of possibility. Language models and knowledge graphs is a very active area of research, to be honest. So this thing changes all the time, and it's a very promising area as well. That's the idea that I wanted to give you. And let me just finish by, well, taking a look at what's next, right? Like, what's the things that we can do from now on? One of the questions is, can we use knowledge graphs, and especially those techniques that we just saw, in technical domains? Because like the systems that I just mentioned have been tested primarily in common sense knowledge graphs or encyclopedic knowledge graphs, but there's not so much in technical knowledge graphs, which are actually the most crucial applications, I'd say. Like, they are used a lot in biology, for example. So can we use them in technical domains? That's a question that needs to be answered. Also, how can we adapt to new nodes? Those systems usually break down a little bit when we put new information in the knowledge graph. So that's a question that still needs to be addressed. Can we use architectures like this architecture that we just saw before that tries to answer questions to also do link predictions? Maybe. How much do LMs hallucinate in this context of knowledge graphs, etc.? We should also get an answer to this to, well, assess how reliable they would be in a real world context. But in general, and this is the big idea of the presentation, I'd say that there's loads of potential here. Like, it's really a promising area. So let's keep building on that. There's lots of things that we can do. So it's a very promising area. And now I'm gonna share, if you could just do me the favor, that would be fantastic. I'm gonna share this form with you so that you can give me some like, the form is super short, and it's just a feedback form. I know I've been super fast, and there's a loads of things that we can try to say about knowledge graphs, but I hope this gives you like a super short introduction to at least the hybridization with language models, which I think is a very interesting area. However, probably I can like always improve my speaking skills. So if you could give me some feedback, I would really thank you, because like then I go and I actually look at the form and I see what people said, and sometimes people tell me, oh, you should also talk about this thing, you should try to include this. I do look at the answers, and I'm gonna copy paste the link here, and I'm gonna paste it on the chat in a sec, so you can go there and just give me some feedback if you could. That would be amazing. And well, to finish, I'd love to take some questions if you'd like to ask anything.
Okay. Anybody, any questions for Eldon?
Sorry for being like so fast, but really, like, it's so hard to cover this thing.
It's a big area. Like, yeah.
That was a great presentation.
Thank you. So I don't think I can actually paste things on the comments, but I pasted them on a thing that's called a private chat here.
Yeah, 1 second, I will throw it out. Copy. I can put a banner on the screen like that. 1 second.
So I have one question I want to ask, but it's just like a random question, just probably, you know, just to know a little bit about your background. How long have you been, you know, learning about AI, and how long did it take you to get to the level where you can explain all of this?
So I'd say probably like 2 years ago, more or less. Like, it's not a lot of time. And how did I learn? Basically, like, reading papers. Like, it's because I was doing, so like what I started, like when I started learning about AI, it was because I decided to do research on that. So like I had to start reading papers. I started with scientific, with summarization of scientific articles, and then I moved like to different areas. But basically, like I think like inside the world of AI, many of the ideas are always the same. So what I learned in the summarization of scientific articles was actually very applicable to loads of different topics on AI that I, well, just learned afterwards. So I don't know if that answers the question like a little
Yeah,
bit.
that answered the question. But I have like a second part to that
Yeah.
question. So the second part to that question, if you see someone out there that is trying to learn AI today, what is that one advice you're going to give that person as a beginner?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, so I'd say first of all, like there's like loads of resources online, and like you can just learn on your own. I think like that's very true. But I'd say that my advice would be that it's so I think like the difficulty of learning AI is just partly because there's loads of things that have different names and are actually the same idea. So like sometimes it can be very confusing to dive into everything yourself, just not because it's inherently difficult. Like I mean, there's like some maths formulas and everything, but like that can be difficult sometimes. But I'd say like navigating the landscape is like a little bit complicated when people talk about the same ideas in different ways. And my advice would just be to be aware of that, like to just try to like see the context of things and well, explore what's like the relation between what I know already and what is being done here, because many times the ideas behind like many AI systems are just natural ideas, things that like a human person would probably come up with intuitively. So like that would be my advice, I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you so much.
I posted your form there on the the LinkedIn as well. So if people just going across the screen too fast, you can get it there on our LinkedIn posting for tonight's show, or you can reach out to Alden or myself if you need
Yep.
it. Okay, so Joseph, do you want to share your screen, or you just doing? You have some stuff to share, yeah?
Yeah, I'll definitely share
Okay.
something. Yeah.
One second now, I just see. Oh, yeah, that's okay. It is there. There you go. You can see your
All right.
screen.
Okay. So, good evening from here, everyone, and morning, afternoon, depending on where you are at this time. So, my name is Joseph. I am happy to be here today. I was supposed to continue what we started off in July, but today I just want to take to the Microsoft page, documentation and certification page to show you around how I got my expert badge. So that actually marked the end of my July. July was actually a very big month for me. I became MVP in July and I became an expert in the same July. So I feel I should be able to show someone how to navigate around this. So I got this yesterday. Was it yesterday? Today is third, on the 31st of July. And for the path to become Microsoft 365 experts, you would first need to have some certifications that you have written. So far here we have five certification as the prerequisites that we have here. So and all these are associate certifications. So if you come down to click here, you are going to see a number of them. You would see M365 certified endpoint administrator associate. You have M365 messaging associate. I think this is no longer there. I see and then you have M365 access administrator, and then you have the information protection and administrator associate. So, but I see something in this one when I try to look at it this afternoon. Where is it? The messaging administrator. I see the retirement of this, that the certification, is it this one actually? Messaging, yeah, I think I saw that it is retired or something about that. Are retired, yeah, look at it here. So this is retired, so that would make it reduce one from those options that you have. Endpoint associates is here. This one is still active, so you could decide to take this one. You could decide to take the Teams associates. You could decide to also take identity and access management administrator. So for me, I took the M365 Teams, the M365 certified Teams administrator associate, and this one is very cool. If you like to take a look at it, it's a very cool certification to check out. It's so sweet that it to take care of a lot of excellent topics that you can take a look at. So coming to after passing either of these ones, then you would need to also take MS-102, and this is my focus of discussion today. So for MS-102 is actually Microsoft 365 essential. That's what it is titled. So when you take that, you are going to have this one added to the other one, added to either of them here. So this one plus any of them here, any of them here plus the MS-102 is going to give you the expert badge. So how is MS-102? Of course, Microsoft Teams Associate is very straightforward and sweet, like I mentioned, but MS-102 seems to be a bit very elaborate. So how do you handle MS-102? So there are a lot of materials, but the best I can always recommend is the Microsoft documentation. And for Microsoft documentation, as candidate for this exam, you have functional knowledge or functional experience with all Microsoft 365 workload and Microsoft Entra ID. These are very important, and have administered at least one of these. You should also have working knowledge about networking. Server administrator is very important, and hybrid environment, you should have knowledge about it. And then you talk about DNS, and you should understand PowerShell as well for you to be able to excel in this examination. So for me, I haven't gone through what I have in MS-102, which is also very interesting as well. So if you come to this documentation here, you would have options to follow it module by module till you get to, you can see more here. Each of these is actually a load of information that you need to also look at. So if you open this, you have details about configuring your tenants. Then you read all these, which are very, very informative. M365 user license, guest contact, and all of that. So when you're done with this, then you can move on to the next one. Then just follow this through. And then the one external material I used to supplement this is this material here. This is not to advertise, but just to let you know that this book is also very, very helpful. It's actually quite a lot of pages. If you scroll down, this is just like it's over 1,000 pages for the complete book, so you have a lot of things to read. And this guy got his almost all the extracts are from where I showed you before, are from the MS-102 official documentation. And while I was reading through this, the author mentioned that even though this book is comprehensive, then there is need for you to go back to this material to go and study what is happening here, because it is from here he got his, and in case there is any update on this, then he may not be able to capture that in the copy that you will be reading, but this place will always be updated. So one other very important thing that helped to get this is Microsoft is so helpful. I can say from here there is excuse me, let me see. There is practice exam for MS-102, which is just let me just search for it again. MS-102. Let me just open it afresh so that I to navigate MS-365 administrator, and you check all of these. When you feel that you are set to go on the examination, then there is need for you to go take the practice assessments. Now, this practice assessment gives you a lot of confidence to know how prepared you are. And Microsoft has said that you should at least have 80% in multiple attempts before you can be sure that you are set for it. I'm sorry, I just yeah, this is it. So take practice assessment is just on the scroll down here, and then you see schedule exam, and then just below that you see take practice assessment. And I just want us to look through some of the ways that you have this question. So when you get it wrong, you can decide to be exposing the answer after each attempt, just so you can be sure of what answer you are getting. However, at the end of each of the examination or the practice assessment, the overall result is going to be displayed for you to know, and Microsoft will tell you if you will see the score to know whether you pass or you did not. And it's advisable you always go back to it. Maybe I will have to do this quickly if I've not signed in here before. I may just have to sign in. Good thing I was signed in already. Okay, so there are 50 questions. It's not time bound, so you can take your time to read. Haven't gone through the entire Microsoft documentation, and then if you have external materials like I mentioned one to you, you could go through that just so you can understand everything that you need to gather and put them together. And when you are done, before you go for this examination, I suggest that you do this. I think I did this about 10 times just to be sure that I have working understanding of the flexible questions that I may be asked in the exam. Good thing is that, again, it is not timed. So this is saying your network contains an on-premises Active Directory domain service. So that's why I mentioned that you should have an understanding about the on-premises environment and the cloud environment. If you only have knowledge about the cloud environment, like most of the guys who started from the cloud may not have the time to go back to study the on-premises environment. If you don't, you may have issues while trying to go through this course. Like that, the very first question we have here now is saying about that. So you have M365 subscription also. That means this is talking about an hybrid kind of environment. So you implemented Microsoft Entra Connect Sync, Cloud Sync. Now you need to configure the organizational units that must sync to the Microsoft 365 Entra ID. So this is actually a typical hybrid environment question, in the sense that yes, you have the on-premises environment, that is the AAD. Then you have you have the ADDS, and then you have M365, and then you need to configure which OU must sync. That means you want to talk about OU filtering here. It means that you need to understand how this works. What should you do? So you need to configure the organizational unit that must sync to the cloud. Now, you look at these questions, the point is not to fail or to pass. That is even the most interesting thing here for me. But the interesting thing here for me is that you would be able to see what you got wrong, and then there will be explanation on why you are wrong and why the right answer is right. So this is saying Active Directory Administrative Center. So it's saying you need to configure what should you use. So this one is saying Active Directory Administrative Center. This one is saying you must use Active Directory Site Services, M365 Admin Center, M365 Entra Admin Center, and this one is saying Microsoft Entra Connect. So if you look at it, it is saying that you implement M365 Entra Connect Cloud Sync. So what if you come to pick between these two, Entra Admin Center, and then you have Microsoft Entra Connect? Now, if you check this, and that's going to be the answer, that is not just because it is the answer, but the point here is that it is going to be explained to you, right? And you can be sure that this is coming from Microsoft directly, meaning that these are your examiners and they are telling you this is the answer. So they are saying here that you can configure the M365 Entra Connect Cloud Sync in Microsoft Entra Admin Center by selecting Hybrid Management and then manage Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync. You can configure the scope of the synchronization where you specify which OU must sync with the Entra ID. Now, somebody would have been arguing that the answer is supposed to be the Entra Connect that used to be called AD Connect, right? But in other tools, you cannot configure Microsoft Entra Connect Cloud Sync, right? And it's saying you can use Microsoft Entra Connect configuration synchronization when you are using Microsoft Entra Connect. So if we're using AD Connect, then you can be right to say it is this that is the last option that is the answer, but not when you are using Entra Connect Cloud Sync. So, and immediately this will be pointing you to the materials that you need to go read, just so you can understand or this URL will point you exactly to go and validate this point that you would have read before. So if I do next, now this one is saying that you have an on-prem Active Directory domain service, ADDS domain, and a Microsoft 365 subscription. You use Microsoft Entra Connect to sync your ID to the cloud. You discover that some identity failed to synchronize due to invalid object attributes. You need to remediate the issue as soon as possible. What tool do you use? Of course, it's ID fix, but I want to choose a wrong answer and see how it will be. Let's just say I want to just pick this one and I do check result. Of course, you see that it's saying I have failed it. This is what it will look like. The answer is incorrect. IDFix will check for object with error. Windows log. Windows log are used to check installation problems. Now you can see that it is connecting the erroneous answer with the correct answer and telling me why my wrong answer is wrong. Now IDFix will check the object with error. Windows log are used. Now, talking about the wrong one, haven't told me about the right one. Windows log are used to check installation problems with Microsoft Entra Connect Sync. Set MS in all of this, just trying to tell you what you need to do regarding why your answer is wrong. Now, if you go to the next one, this is saying that you have an on-premises Active Directory domain service domain and Microsoft 365 subscription, you use M365 Entra Connect Cloud Sync to synchronize your identity to the cloud. Now, again, you can confirm that just within 3 questions that we'll be working with, you're already seeing that the 3 of them are hybrid environment questions. So if you want to go for this, you have to go start from the on-premises environment, understand it, understand administrative units, how to use the Entra Connect to the cloud sync and all of those before you can, proceed with this. So you have to go start from there. So you use M365 Connect Cloud Sync to synchronize your identities to the cloud. Now it's saying that a new on-premises firewall, that's why you also need to have an idea about networking and have has been installed. Which 2 ports are required to ensure that the Entra Connect Cloud Sync continues to function, that each correct answer presents a part of the solution? This is HTTP and this is HTTPS. So these 2 ports needs to be open, right? So if you check it, it will explain to you that port 80 downloads the certificate revocation list, that's CRL, why the TLS and SSS certificate. Now port 443 handles all the outbound communication with, it will explain it to you and immediately points you to the URLs where you want to use to check the prerequisite for the AD Connect Cloud Sync and the AD Connect Microsoft Entra, just so, and then implementing directory synchronization too. And then this is just taking you straight up to the training. So this I found very, very useful. For example, this is saying that you have on-premises Active Directory domain service. Again, taking you to on-prem. In short, when I saw this exam, in short, when I had the mind to write the exam, I was feeling that it was going to be handling like a combination of the M365 workload, coming to talk about Microsoft Teams, don't talk about OneDrive, then trying to talk about Exchange, maybe all of this put together. But when I came into it and I saw the curriculum, I realized that it is speaking more to hybrid environment, to a very great extent. It's talking to hybrid environment, not because other parts are not there in compliance and all of those, but you need to understand hybrid environment. Now, what are they saying again? You use M365 Entra Connect to synchronize your identities to the cloud. So you have deleted an on-premises user account, but the account still exists in Entra ID. So what is this saying? Synchronization delay. So if it is synchronization delay and you are talking about the last changes that were made, of course, you know that first of all, this set ADC sync cycle is okay. ADC sync cycle is okay, but you have to know that it is about policy type, either delta or initial. And in this case, we are talking about the last changes that were made. So it means that you are going for delta. And if you check the answer, it's going to explain to you again that to manually run the sync cycle, you need to run this command, to ensure that only updates that was made, the last update, will be synced to the cloud. So now is diving into identity. I think from what I can see that you have M365 tenant, that which 2 authentication method can be used as primary authentication factor to sign into M365. Each correct answer represents. So now which 2 authentication method can be used as primary authentication. So for primary authentication, you want to look at FIDO2 security key, and voice is not actually a primary sign in or authentication method. So OAuth also is not a primary authentication method, but Microsoft Authenticator app is. Also, you have some questions that will come up later that may be speaking to passwordless authentication and the like. So you may want to try this. So I may not want to keep answering these questions here on this show, but the essence of it is to show you that while preparing for the exam, you also have options to go over this free examination time and time and time and time again until you feel confident that you can go face the exam. But I will advise you to cover not just the cloud. You should cover the on-premises environment, hybrid environment, then before you come to compliance, then come to identity and all of those. So I will create time to do videos on this. I did one, but it's not very detailed because there was no voice in that video, but I will try to do a more detailed video on how to answer these questions, and we try to see how many we can get by an attempt. So it's going to be like a live recording to see how good I can navigate through this and come up with scores to also let you learn what you need to know about this. So this is what I thought to show you as in the spirit of trying to celebrate that achievement. Thank you very much for your time. I think I have to give the mic to Frank.
Okay, Joseph, very good there, and showing those questions. And just one thing for people to be aware of, those actual questions that are in the practice exam are not the ones that you're going to get in the actual exam. So just be aware that they're only just sample questions, practice ones. They're not the actual ones. They're like it, but they're not it. So just on Alden's point there on doing the AI, the graphs and the knowledge graphs, I just want to share my screen there, and we're just going to use a Copilot to see, can it reconfigure some sort of thing about the knowledge graphs, and if there's anything wrong, Alden is our expert there. He can tell us if the AI got it wrong. So can you see my screen there with the M365?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah, very good. So just for people that don't know about this, if you want to use Copilot with any of these things, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneDrive, Teams, and so on, you need to have an M365 personal or business account, and then you have to buy another Copilot license, which is about €20 a month, to be able to use this. So I've just opened PowerPoint. So when you go into PowerPoint on your M365, this is what it looks like. And up here on the right-hand corner, you'll see it's got Copilot. So that means your Copilot is working. If not, if you don't see that there, you're not probably signed in properly to your account. So I'm going to click on the Copilot here, and it opens up a pane here in the right-hand side. And because we don't have anything in there now, it tells you I can chat, respond to questions, and help you draft this presentation. So it's given us two things: create a presentation about something, add a slide about something, and then down the bottom here, we've got ask me anything about a presentation. So what we want to do here is click on this button, create a presentation, and then down the bottom you see this is after changing. So Alden done a great presentation there at the start about AI knowledge graphs, and what we're going to do, we're going to ask the AI Copilot to do a presentation about that. So I'm just going to paste in here. So create a presentation about AI knowledge graphs, and we'll see, I'm going to hit the send button, and we'll see what Copilot brings up. So this is getting better all the time. Initially, when I first started doing this a few months back, you would only come up with 5 or 6 slides. So because we saw all the slides that Alden had earlier, there is a lot of stuff in knowledge graphs. So it seems to be working on it, and we'll see what it comes up with. Okay, so it's given us 15 slides. Wow. So I'm not sure, Alden, have you seen this in use before?
No, I haven't tried Copilot like on PowerPoint yet.
Yeah.
But let's take a look. Like,
yeah, sure. So what I'll do, like as you can see, it's after populating all 15 slides with pictures and whatever. So I'm just going to go up here and run the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so it's given us AI knowledge graph, exploring the basics, important. So we'll just go down through and we'll see. So I won't read out everything because we're only kind of coming up on the end of the show. So graph databases, schematic, web. So this is kind of giving us some stuff that you didn't talk about, but we can see the kind of the nodes and the connections, how they work, the relationships, why is it important, structures, applications of AI knowledge graphs. So it's all kind of stuff really that's
it's a good presentation. Yeah, I mean, like it didn't hallucinate or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you
But I think it's too worded, right? The wordings are too much for a presentation, correct?
Yeah.
just one other thing there. I'll just show you there. Like if we're in this one here, it also maybe it's this one here. So see, I pull that up there. It also gives you speakers notes. You see that down the bottom?
Yeah, I can see. That's great.
So like in this one, it says an AI knowledge graph is a way of representing information and knowledge in a machine readable format. It is a type of graph database that uses schematic web technologies to store and query data. We will explore the basics of AI graphs, including how they work and why they. So, do you think that is true? What Copilot picked up for us, Eldon?
Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. Like it's I mean like so like AI tends to generate like sort of generic explanations, but in general, but as like it's an overview, it's a very good like presentation. Like yeah, yeah, I think it like as like as a place to start building, it's a good attempt. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, if you have like when you get your slides up as well, you see next to Copilot up on the top right hand side, it's got this thing called Designer. Have you seen Designer before? So
I have, yeah, designer
yeah,
was.
so like they've incorporated Designer, which is another AI tool for imaging using DALI 2, as far as I know. So if you click on this one, so it gives you, if you want to change the way your layout of the screen, if you didn't want the picture here, you wanted to go here, so it changes the whole layout of it. So that's that. Kind of an overview there of Copilot in M365. So that brings us up on the hour.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Yeah.
Great presentation from.
It was a big mixture of stuff, really, wasn't it, this week?
Yeah. I also love the whole idea of coming from our done presentation on AI, then Joseph trying to also show us around the certifications. For the certifications, I think when I got it last, I needed to write 2 exams. That was the MS 100 and MS 101. And when the beta exam was released for the 102, I could remember going through all the Microsoft Learn but on the day of the exam, somehow Pearson review kicked me off. So
Hmm.
I couldn't write it again because I actually got it free. It was given to MCT, so I wanted to take the exam, but I didn't take it again. But it was not a loss because I also went through the documentation and I learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so, but I still have the certification, but I just keep renewing it.
Yeah, I think to me, I think that's one of the certification. Like I think I told Joseph. So I say
Yeah.
that's one of my lovely certification. I'm actually taking my time to study. Most of micro certification, I normally do skimming and all those things, but this one, I I'm literally taking my time. I'm also going to do the exam before the year runs out, so I'm actually taking my time to go through this. I'm really enjoying it. Also, the same time, I decide also trying to open my developer account, try to do one or two practice from this. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's a lovely certification. Yeah.
This is the only exam I know that I finished the whole Microsoft doc and I read that book of about 1040 pages from beginning to the end of it before going in for the practicing exam. Yeah. So it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, I
Wow.
love it. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so I'll just end the live one. So, guys, thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll be back here again the same time next week for the Azure and AI show. Anybody have any talks they want to do, reach out to me, and we'll facilitate it. And we also have Journey to the Cloud once a month, first Thursday of every month. It's on for 2 hours, and we'd have Dan Ray there, and a few other people. So if you want to join us, Alden, on that one as well, you'll see it posted. And that particular one is not kind of, it can be open to any topic. This week we actually had it on
Suicide prevention.
suicide prevention. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was making people aware of it wherever. So it wasn't all about technology and stuff. So
Great.
yeah. So I'm just ending the live.